The other thing is, that's been brought up with the upland is, what is a water-dependent use? You brought up the absurd example of daisies on a barge, would that then be a water-dependent use? I want to grow daisies and I want to do it on a barge, so then it's a water-dependent use. I want to have a pig farm on a barge. I want to have a floating one, so it becomes a water-dependent use. I want to have a casino, I'll do it on a barge. It's water-dependent, so you gotta let me do it. I don't think just because it's on if you can do it on the water means it's water-dependent. Dependent means it has to be done there. And what we're finding is it's actually better in most cases to do it on land when it comes to farm fishing. You can do it in a greenhouse. Have that on. We saw that with the Will Allen presentation this weekend out at Fort Worden. I guess that's not part of the record here, but they had the fish farm at the bottom of the greenhouse. That's where water eventually went. So those are kind of the three areas I've been looking at quite a bit. I don't necessarily find fish farming itself to be water dependent, fin fish farming. Because you can do it on land. You can do it in Montana. You can do it in Milwaukee. You can do it in the inner city. So I don't think it has to be done as a net bin.
We do have a defined, and what you're saying would apply. I mean, water-dependent use means a use or a portion of a use that requires direct contact with the water and cannot exist at a non-water location due to the intrinsic nature of its operations. Examples are ferry terminals, public fishing piers, marinas, and shellfish aquaculture are examples.
Well, upland has direct contact with the water. I think they're pumping the water up.
Yeah, I don't think the definition is intended only for in water, but it's a water location you need either in or adjacent to. Again, this is of course only within shoreline jurisdiction, which extends 200, well, typically about 200 feet. So even an upland facility that needs to draw from the adjacent water body, whether it's freshwater or marine, certainly there's freshwater species that could be cultured.
Including salmon than freshwater.
Yeah.
For some seawater ones, I guess, if you want to do halibut, for example, I guess you might have to use seawater.
Gotta keep the halibut happy.
Yeah, they go out there. But then you'd have to pump it up, but then you still could contain it. You still could treat the water before you released it.
In an upland system.
In an upland situation, or an enclosed situation. That would be another option to go, is with total enclosure.
Well, as recently as 2006, the Shoreline Hearings Board approved a net pen operation next to rural residential and next to Conservancy, about 500 feet away from the 3 adjacent islands. It's all in this book that I guys gave you. So there's case law that says that when you use the BMPs, that it's going to be upheld. If the permit is challenged, it's going to be upheld by the Shoreline Hearings Board. So just be aware of that out there. That a lot of these issues have come up over and over again, like whether or not there's going to be cross-pollination of the species, whether or not there's going to be diseases carried across from the harvest, from the non-native fish to native fish, and over and over again, they find that those things have not yet occurred, or there's no evidence of them. Just like we'd want to know whether or not there was any evidence of a virus infection happening in the United States, as opposed to happening in Chile.
Well, they're asking to see all these negative environmental impacts on Puget Sound where there is no net pen at this time. NOAA suggested. I mean, there's a handful of them, but the negative impacts come once you open the door.
Well, it says they're possible. The letter says they're possible. I mean, the other thing is that don't forget that SEPA is only, if it's probable, it has to be probable and significant. before SEPA allows you to mitigate against it. And,
And
you know,
you
so
can't
that's,
use Chile as an example of what's probable and significant. You've got to use.
well, I would say that you'd have to be, I mean, that's, you know, that's a whole hemisphere away. I mean, I think,
Vancouver's not.
well, has there been a virus infection in
They don't have
Vancouver?
virus yet, no.
Has there been a parasite up there? What happened in Vancouver?
They've had terrible problems with the parasites, with the sea lice and the migration of fry. And there's all kinds of studies on that. It's actually affecting and endangering the natural run of Fraser River salmon. Primarily on Tinker.
The fries from the net beds are carrying parasites to the native fish?
The net pen fish have so many sea lice that when the fry come out and are heading out to the ocean,
The native fry.
the native fry come out.
Native
And if
fry
they swim
fish.
within a certain distance of these net pens, the sea lice are attaching to them and killing them.
We're finding really significant difference between the fish that go north around Vancouver Island through all the fish pen areas in Canada versus the ones that go south and out the Strait of Juan de Fuca. They survive much better because they're not going through a bunch of these. From what I've read, that is the significant difference between those two pathways. One goes through net pens and one doesn't. In those tight areas that we have in the interior of Puget Sound. I mean, it sometimes seems like Puget Sound's this big area, but when you look at it, it's a bunch of little narrow areas. So it's quite different.
Well, every challenge based on aesthetics was also rejected in those 6 cases too, so just look at this again sometime and get a chance.
I did, and there were those cases related to the existing rules, though, whether it complied with, and what we're talking about is new rules.
Right, but everyone challenged them, and they all were found to be not a probable significant adverse impact because they were following all the recommendations of that 1990 programmatic EIS, which is like the 1,500 feet, keep it 8 feet or less of the, keep the hut 8 feet above the sea level, all that kind of stuff. So those kind of, following those BMPs or whatever you want to call them, or best, or what the EIS recommended programmatically, every single permit was approved and upheld against a challenge by, I believe, neighbors.
But it's a permit that's approved, and that permit's based on the law that exists in that jurisdiction at that time.
But they all suggest that it can be done in a way that gets the size, gets the adverse impacts below probable and significant. You can't prevent someone from creating. There's really not a process in the law to allow you to prevent impacts that are less than probable and significant.
I would think that there would be probable significance, but, just based on worldwide studies. But
Well,
it's ridiculous.
You just have to really, the record really has to reflect that science then. The record has to really point to that science and say,
Substantial amount of science.
in the findings of fact, we'll have to say, here's the findings of fact we're relying on.
Well, and where I did read your thing again, and appreciate that, none of those really dealt with viruses.
Right.
None of those cases. So I think
But they did deal with the cross-pollination of the species, they did deal with the visual, they did deal with the distances, they did deal with the current. And I even made a matrix.
Yeah.
There's a matrix in there that talks about what issues were dealt with in each one. All of them dealt with whether it would interfere with navigation. 5 out of the 6 required monitoring. 1 dealt with human health. 2 dealt with predation by other species. 3 dealt with escape. And 5 dealt with disease and antibiotics.
Well, I mean, even WAC 172.26.241 says the technology associated with some forms of present-day aquaculture is still in the formative stages and experimental. is, should not be allowed in areas where it would result in net loss of ecological function, adversely affect eelgrass or microalgae, or establish non-native species.